Hello, everyone. This is Liam from Liam's Lyceum, aka Hemvar. I am going to be giving you my weekly updates. This is Liam's Leapings number 29 for the 11th of February, 2023. Okay, so this is a weekly update where I just mostly talk about what I read, what I finished reading, what I'm in the middle of reading, some updates on like writing generally, some new books if I got them at the end, maybe a little rambly thing included in there. So this week, though, I have a really big stack. Actually, I read a lot this week. So I'm just going to take off the top stack. So Sinister Barrier, which is also a book I got this week because I've been reading this online. You can read this in Unknown Magazine, archived online. I'm almost done with it. I'm going really slowly through it. I read like a chapter every couple days. But it's fun. It definitely, I think there was at one point, maybe like chapter 7 or 8 or something like that, it got like kind of racist, which is disappointing. I mean, you kind of expect it in a novel from 1939, but it wasn't in there earlier in the book. But besides that, the book is really good. Well, I would maybe not really good, but it is pretty good. I like it a lot, actually. So um, I have a lot of things I like about it. So Sinister Barrier, that is by Eric Frank Russell. I'm not sure I've heard like really anything about this guy ever. So there's that. And then I finished an Alien Heat by Michael Moorcock. I was in the middle of reading this one last week. So this is the first in his Dancers at the End of Time trilogy. And it's really short. It was really easy and quick to read. It was very fun. It was absurd, ironic, stuff like that. So yeah, fun stuff. Another one I finished, also was reading last week, is The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather. Just slightly. It just makes my voice sound annoying mostly. This is considered a pretty well-known Gothic romance novel. I thought it was kind of long, a little bloated, so to speak, but it was really good. Actually, I really liked the writing in some sense. But I mean, again, it was a little long. I don't think it needed to be that long. So I'm glad I read it though. It's from 1794, so I like reading classics. I'm trying to improve my classics readings this year. And then I am almost done with The Green Millennium by Fritz Leiber. This is really fun, actually. This is a 53 novel by Leiber. Didn't win any awards as far as I'm aware. But it is really fun. Honestly, it's weird. It's got drugs. It's got the sexual content. It's got witchcraft. It's got punks. It almost actually feels like cyberpunk, just without. It's not really high tech. Takes place early 21st century, but it's in the USSR. It still exists. Cold War is going on. World War III had happened, but so there's not a lot of tech. There's no cyberspace, but it feels kind of like cyberpunk. And I know Gibson does generally doesn't refer to like the big golden age sci-fi authors or like new wave sci-fi authors, which preceded cyberpunk. But he generally references Alfred Bester and Fritz Leiber. So I wouldn't be surprised if he read this and got some inspiration for like Neuromancer or something. So I'm really enjoying it though. It's really fun. I could have easily finished it, and I could have easily finished Sinister Barrier as well. I didn't, so I would actually have on my thumbnail. I like to put the books that I've completed, but if I haven't completed enough, then I will just put books I've read as well. And I finished like 5 or so books this week. Yeah, and so that's plenty to put on my thumbnail. I'm one over, right? And so I was like, I need something for next week, assuming I finished Sinister Barrier and The Green Millennium and maybe not finish some other things. So then I read a short story in A Merchant in Oria by Another Tales, of course, by David Wiley. It's been a minute. I haven't been reading a lot of short stories recently, but I finally read the saga of, was it Freydis Beastbane? Yeah, that's it. Very fun. It's again kind of a mix of Norse saga with Arthurian legend, with like questing beasts specifically. So I thought it was pretty fun. David is a really good writer. You should check this out if you haven't already. So hopefully I'll get back into reading more of these short stories and finish it up sooner rather than later. And then I am only 3 chapters into Lake of the Long Sun by Gene Wolfe, which is book 2 and Book of the Long Sun. I'm going to hope that I can finish Book of the Long Sun this year. Hopefully by, before the middle of the year even, it'd be nice. So, and maybe I could even get to Short Sun this year, and that'll up my Gene Wolfe reading a lot. I've already read one Gene Wolfe this year. That was Fifth Head of Cerberus. I read Nightside last year. My review for Nightside should actually be coming out in a few weeks probably, but because I'm really behind on my reviews. If you're not aware, I'm like 30 books behind. So like the books I review, generally there's some where I'll push them ahead for whatever reason. But generally, those reviews you're getting every week is something I read like 3 months ago. So, yeah. But I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm excited to see where it goes. And then I finished this. This is the Anglo-Saxon version of Gregory the Great's, Pope Gregory the Great's Pastoral Care, Pastoral Rule. I don't know. I generally just refer to it as Pastoral Care, but it has some pretty interesting stuff in here. A lot of stuff that, that it seems comes off as very Catholic. A lot of it still agrees, I think, with like Protestant stuff, but it's very Christian. I thought it was a good accompaniment to The Rule of St. Benedict, which I read last week. If you remember, I didn't have a copy yet, so I got my copy. It's just a little notebook type of thing, handbook rather. And so Pastoral Care, King Alfred, notably, of course it might not have actually been him, but someone in his court at least, translated it into Old English. And there's some good stuff in here. Basically, he wants to make the English people learned again, essentially, since the Vikings have destroyed a lot of that in the collapse, essentially, of all the Viking raids coming and looting their, wealthy and knowledgeable places. And there's a line in here I actually have on a T-shirt you might have seen before, seen me wear. It says, "Thimara wisdom on lunda vara thiwema yetheora kuthan," which means, well, this is the translation they give. Actually, it says, "Wisdom in this land might increase with our knowledge of languages." Or there would be more wisdom in the world the more languages we knew, is generally how I've translated it. But it's quite fun. And it's not super long. It looks really thick there, but it's not actually that long. That's because it's giving you both Old English and Modern English. Okay, and then I got this week and read it. It's just a novella. Black Amazon of Mars. This is a recent version, actually. It's the Sir Silva's version. It is definitely a callback to the Planet Stories magazine from 1951. This is the cover on Planet Stories of this story. And I don't think any of the old art gets Eric John Stark, who's the main character. I don't think any of them get his skin color right. And so they copied that art basically, but it's a new artist. It's just taking the image and redoing it essentially in their own style, and they get Eric John Stark's color correctly. This was really good. It actually kind of reminded me somewhat of some Jarell Joiry stuff, particularly with this Black Amazon right here. You should read it. This is really good. This is good old-fashioned Sword and Planet sci-fi. Lee Brackett is probably best known for writing an earlier version of Empire Strikes Back, and some of the stuff was in there in the movie that was made. So I really like this. This was fun. Very fun. They just don't write sci-fi like this anymore, sadly. So, and this is technically illustrated. It's got some art in here. I'm not a huge fan of the art style, to be honest. But it's still a great story. You should read it. I'm really looking for it. I know they did. I think all of the novellas. Excuse me. Sir Silva did, and so I'm looking forward to reading all of them. And I'll probably get the ones that match this. There is some later Eric John Stark stuff I know called the Skaith trilogy, which these came out in the late 40s, early 50s. I think Skaith is from the 60s, maybe the 70s. I think it's from the 60s. So, and so that takes place on Mars, right? Black Amazon on Mars. But sci-fi had moved away from that at that point. So Skaith takes place on Skaith, which is in like a different solar system, right? So a lot of sci-fi back in the day was in our solar system, right? Like when you're reading John Carter, of course, for example. So, anyways, and then I read Servants of War, finished it. I can't remember if I had started this last week. This is by Larry Correia, Steve Diamond. It is World War One military fantasy. It is not World War One, as in it's not in our world. It is a secondary world. It is tied to our world somehow, but it is still a secondary world. It's basically Russia World War One inspired, rather than say like medieval or Renaissance inspired. Pretty fun. It has some horror elements, and I know Steve Diamond is known for his horror writing. I've never read anything by Larry Correia. He's definitely the more popular author. I met them both actually at FanX, and I liked talking to Steve. I didn't get to talk to him all that much. I didn't really talk to Larry that much because he was the most popular person probably at this booth, and so he had a lot of people talking to him. But they did sign up for me. So, but Steve was a cool guy, and I used to live actually from the area he's from. So, anyways, that was a fun one. It is first in a series. But military fantasy is not done all that often. I feel like you'll get sci-fi, military sci-fi more often than fantasy. And then I read the first vision in Piers Plowman. This is divided into 8 visions, 20 passes, and a prologue. I read the first 5, or maybe it's the first 4 passes, I think. Yeah, that sounds right. First 4 passes are the first vision. So I'm not terribly far into it, to be honest. And this has the Old English, Middle English rather, and the Modern English. So it's not as easy English as like Chaucer, but it's not terribly hard, I feel like. But it's also not as entertaining as Chaucer. It is a little older than Chaucer, but just barely. So I'm still reading through that one. That is a buddy read. And then I read. Oh, let me double check so I don't get this wrong. I think it's The Merchant's Tale. Yeah, Merchant's Tale and The Cleric's Tale and Canterbury Tales, though. Speaking of Chaucer, it's just superb, honestly. I'm liking Piers Plowman, but it's just like probably doesn't help that I read some of Piers Plowman the same day I read Canterbury Tales, and it's like, wow, okay, Canterbury Tales is just. One of my teachers at the beginning of the semester, he didn't put much thought into it, but he said top 5 books of all time. I think he put at number 5, he put The Canterbury Tales, which is above Shakespeare. Which I find very interesting because most people wouldn't put that book Shakespeare. And, maybe if he had pointed that out to him, he wouldn't have. But Canterbury Tales is so good. Man, everyone should read it. And a lot of people have a tendency to think that something this old would be hard to read. It is technically in a different language, but you read it in a modern English translation, it's pretty easy. And it's pretty funny, and it's a lot cruder than you'd think it'd be, too, probably. So this is great. Read the Canterbury Tales if you have not. I have several versions of Canterbury Tales. That's just the one I've been using. So let me see if I read any digital ones. Sorry about my voice. Oh yeah, so I did start Time Trials as well by M.A. Rothman and D.J. Butler. This comes out in March. I just got an ARC. I'm looking forward to getting a physical copy. I like Butler's stuff. I've never read anything by Rothman, though I'm pretty sure Rothman's the more popular author here. It is kind of like Indiana Jones time travel in Egypt type of thing going on. It's actually a prequel story called Rise of the Administrator, if I'm remembering correctly, in the Bain anthology Worlds Long Lost, which came out December, which is edited by Sean Koosgaard and Christopher Accio. And it's pretty entertaining so far. It's almost like a thriller. I don't read a lot of stuff like this, but it's not stuff I'm opposed to reading, obviously, and I like Butler, so I wanted to read it anyways. And then as far as, I mentioned the one short story in David Wiley's book, of course, but I also read the newest chapter in the Weave in the Void novel, which is being serialized, on the Weave in the Void's Patreon page. I did a video actually about Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms with Renfail, who is one of the guys doing the Weave in the Void. His YouTube channel is Renfail, Renfail. We talked about Dragonlance in Forgotten Realms, which was pretty fun. But I read chapter 32, which is great. I think we're getting closer to the end of the book now. So it'll be interesting to see the book as a whole rather than these individual serialized chapters. And then I read The Red Planet by Rhett Weisenfels. I'm going to guess that's how he says it. It's a flash fiction story at Starward Shadows. It's like Sword and Planet. It gives definitely Sword and Sorcery vibes. So That's like the first thing Star Wars Shadows has published in a long while, if I'm remembering correctly. So it was pretty good. It was nice to see them publish something too. Um, it's funny actually. So now since I'm getting into my writing, I think I might have mentioned this last week that they came out and they said that there's issue 3, like stuff is like all set to go, and that they should have responded to everyone. And they're like, if you didn't get an email from us, let us know. And so I was like, I didn't get a response, and so I emailed them as a reply to the email I got when they got my stuff. So maybe I shouldn't have done. Maybe I should have sent them a new email. But I said basically, you didn't give me a response, which of course I'm assuming they don't want my story is of course what I'm assuming because I'm not in issue 3, but they didn't reject me either technically, and they haven't responded to my email. So I'm like how long should I wait until I send another email? Because I don't want that. Admittedly, that's one of the stories. That's one of like the first sword and sorcery stories I wrote, and in some ways, it's not even very sword and sorcery. There's not really any conflict. There is conflict. It's all internal though, which is not very sword and sorcery to be honest. Which is why I kind of thought it fit with Star Wars Shadows because they're not exclusively sword and sorcery. So, anyways, there's that. I did a little bit of writing in the Watch It Water this week, not as much as I would like. I did write kind of another scene, so that's good. But I need to. It's in bits and pieces right now. I'm not sure. I have a sea shanty at the beginning. I'm not sure if that works. It's a mix of. I'm pretty sure it's the shanty from Ael's Saga, um, Icelander Saga, and Pic La Baleine, which is a French sea shanty about hunting whales. So, anyways, it's a mix of that. I mix those together kind of to make my own thing. And then I did finish writing one sonnet though this week, the whole thing. Sonnet number 7. I think I only ever actually finished the first 3, so sonnets 4, 5, and 6 are all unfinished. I haven't touched them probably since like March or something. So it's been almost a year. So yeah. Anyways, I did forget the books I got this week that I had already mentioned was Lord of the World by Robert Hugh Benson, which is a 1908, I think, maybe 1907, dystopian sci-fi. As far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure this guy was like a Catholic priest as well or something. This version I got doesn't have page numbers, so that's kind of lame. Just so you know, and it also is like not formatted like the greatest. That looks bad. But it's better than nothing. So it's print on demand. The cover looks fine from a distance, but up close it's like kind of blurry. And then I also got, because it was really cheap, Night of the Long Knives by Fritz Leiber. This is just a new, again, probably print on demand, copy. More Fritz Leiber that I can read finally. So not finally. It's post-apocalyptic. Yeah. So I hear good things. It's rather short. It's like novella. So I'll read this at some point, of course. Fritz Leiber, my boy. Actually, I've been looking at some of Justin Leiber's stuff. I have a couple of his books already, but he seems like he might have been a philosopher because half the stuff when I look it up is like straight up philosophy, like thought experiments, and the other half is mostly sci-fi. There's a little bit of fantasy in there, but it's mostly sci-fi, and it seems like most people like don't review it that well. But they'll say like the story part of it's not that great, but it's kind of just like a thoughtful novel or something like that. So, like I think there's the first. He's got a trilogy called Beyond, the Beyond trilogy, because it's like beyond redemption, beyond something else, beyond humanity. So, and the first book is like about this guy who dies and he wakes up in a body. It's a female body and it has like a prehensile tail. So, so that one's about identity and maybe you could even say gender dysphoria, which is interesting because the book came out like 1980. So sci-fi does that pretty well, though. It's kind of ahead of its time in some sense. So I kind of want to read those. Those sound pretty interesting. Hopefully they're not terrible, but I'm going to read this, probably his fantasy I have already first. Let me see. The Sword in the Eye. That's the one I have. And there's a sequel to that one I have as well. So they're rather short, seem pretty easy to read, to be completely honest. So they seem kind of witty and like just have a very interesting style to the few pages I read of it like last week, just to get an idea of it. So I might read. I'm actually planning on reading that after I finish the Green Millennium, unless I change my mind once I finish the Green Millennium, which could easily happen. So that's been my week. Let me know how your week is going. I might not have a weekly update next week. I'm going to be at a academic conference, a symposium for science fiction and fantasy literature, L2UE, the Life, Universe, and Everything uh, symposium is in Utah. It's technically an academic conference, and it's like, but it's kind of like a convention. It's way smaller than FanX, which is when I went to last year, my first convention. This will be cool because it's really focused on writing. It's rather old. It's like the 42nd year they're hosting it as well, so should be fun. I'm actually really looking forward to it. But I don't know if I'll come out with a weekly update. So if I don't, and I don't come out with a video mentioning this, I thought it was important to note that on February the 18th, so a week from when this video should go up, so that's Saturday, February the 18th, is the 100th anniversary of Weird Tales, which is a really important milestone of publication of Weird Tales for fantasy and horror literature. And it turns 100. It's the March 1923 issue, appeared on newsstands on February 18th, 1923. So that's pretty exciting. I've been reminding a ton of people. So maybe some people will celebrate somehow. I'd really like to, but I won't be here at my house, so I might not get anything out for it. Like a live stream or something is what I prefer, to be honest. I don't know if I'll make a video. I might if I can find time. But it's midterms that week as well, and I'm leaving. So yikes. Anyways, so yeah, celebrate Weird Tales 100th anniversary. That's exciting, right? So, anyways, it's been Liam with Liam's Lyceum. Let me know how your week's going and maybe how you think or hope your next week will go. I will catch you next time.